Speaking of candidates, welcome back. My next guest, a first-generation American whose parents came to America from Brazil in search of the American dream. And now he's running as a Republican for Congress in New York's 3rd District. Plus, he, like President Trump, tested positive for the coronavirus right in the middle of his campaign, but he didn't let that stop him. Welcome to the show, George Santos. Mr. Santos, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, Dan.
So I know that you contracted the virus a while back. Fill us in on when you got diagnosed, how you felt, and then we'll talk about how you pushed and forged forward and kept your campaign trucking.
Absolutely. So back March 7th is when I was officially hospitalized. I was ambulanced into what would later become COVID, Central here in New York. Hotbed Elmhurst Hospital was the only hospital seeing potential COVID patients back in March. And came back from CPAC. I did a lot of handshaking. The moment I started seeing reports that people at CPAC were testing positive, it was clear to me that I was probably exposed. And I'd be cautious. So, I came back and business as usual. I came down with what seemed like a cold, exhaustion, whatever, fatigue. You're campaigning, you're not sleeping a whole lot, and you're traveling a lot. And it was COVID. COVID beat my butt. I say that really often because I didn't have hydroxychloroquine. I didn't have the cocktails that are available today. A great example of that is the president in 4 to 5 days has shown a remarkable recovery to COVID. Meanwhile, on my first 5 to 7 days, I was still at home just fighting it off with Advil for fever. That's what was recommended to me at the time. There were no remedies, no studies going on. And I had to bounce back from that and move on to a virtual campaign. It was a very interesting time in March. People were still out campaigning. De Blasio, the mayor of New York City, was on TV saying, "Go to the movie theaters, go to the theaters. It's nothing but a common cold." I was actually in the ER when he said that on TV. Nancy Pelosi famously said, "Go to Chinatown, celebrate Chinese New Year, gather in groups." Amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, but George, the president didn't do enough. But remember, when he did the shutdown for China and parts of Europe, then he was being xenophobic and racist, while they were out telling people to still go enjoy their lives. Now, fast forward 7 months, we know a whole hell of a lot more about the virus. The president just proved that. We now have therapeutics that'll work, so you shouldn't let it dominate your life because there are things that can save your life out there. And what are they doing? Now they're saying he's not being cautious enough, he's being reckless, he's being dangerous with all this, when they were telling people, and I hope to God undecided voters and maybe some Democrats out there that maybe watch this show will wake up and realize this virus has been politicized, purely politicized to try and take Donald Trump out. Yes, it's a deadly virus. Yes, we have to take it seriously. But what they have done from day one, and you just pointed it out, George, is so hypocritical, it disgusts the hell out of me. So enough of that. A quick question, though, for you, George. You got sick. You just said you had to go virtual a minute ago. How are you feeling now today, months later? And how did you take your campaign virtual, still get the message out? And do you feel it's hurt you in the polls? Where do you stand right now?
Well, like every incumbent, they have the power of the incumbency, which is always a benefit to them. So for me, it just meant spend more money sooner than anyone else, raise more money. And how do you do that if you're a full virtual, right? So essentially, we instantly started with virtual town halls. I was actually still COVID positive at home when I started our very first town hall on Zoom, and we went with all the social media platforms, and that was a great hit. At one point, we had 600-700 people submitting questions. It was great. So essentially, we went from that, and we pivoted to digital mailing, digital advertising all across, which historically only happens towards the tail end of the campaign. So a lot of information was already selected and offered forward. The interesting part is when July came and New York State was kind of relieved from its shutdown, we hit the ground running, and everybody was excited to see us. People, when we knock on their doors now, they're excited to see us. I'm actually polling ahead of the incumbent. I'm the law and order candidate. I'm endorsed by every police union. And I think that just shows that the Democrats don't get it.
Love hearing that story, George. And the reason I really wanted to have you on is to share your story about having COVID back at the beginning when we didn't know a lot, and how you had to transition and do kind of the Well, what Joe Biden did for the last 6-7 months until he decided to come out of the basement. But you were forced to because you were sick with a deadly virus. He just stayed hunkered down until, well, the polls showed that he wasn't speaking up enough against the rioters and for law and order. Then he decided to come out of the basement. Up next, I'm speaking to someone who not only decided to walk away from the Democrat Party for good, but then he started an entire nationwide movement around it. That's right, Brandon Straka joining Real America after the break. Don't go away.